on DHS, which will shut down TSA, which has nothing to do with the other, because they don't want our agents wearing masks and having their names so they can be harassed and threatened, which they have been at over 1,000% increase. Secretary Holman told us that. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to ask, what do you say to MAGA voters who are concerned right now about another forever war, about Americans who are dying overseas and are being told to expect more casualties?
I would say stay concerned. I mean, be concerned, be vigilant, hold our feet to the fire, keep us honest on that issue.
Even when it comes to Trump's decisions on this?
Absolutely, ma'am. Nobody's above your reproach. Just don't tell the president I said that. I got you. I get you, and I'll get you next, ma'am. Go ahead, brother.
Senator Lindsey Graham is now calling for the U.S. to start bombing Lebanon in response to the Hezbollah IDF action.
Lindsey hadn't seen a fist fight he hasn't wanted to turn into a bombing raid, so I just take it with a grain of salt, dude. Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if you saw reports that
That's a good quote.
the next supreme leader has been chosen.
Do what?
Apparently, the next supreme leader of Iran, according to reports, has been chosen. It's the
Yeah,
son of Khamenei. What does that signal to you?
I've seen a lot of that. I've also seen that they eliminated their about 40 of them in one hit. So I would be very cautious on what I believe. I mean, maybe they're going to elect him as the leader, but there's only 20 people that are going to follow him. You got to realize about less than 20% of the people of Iran are of the radical Islamic faith. Most of them are like y'all.
Congressman,
what was the tone of the meeting?
I thought it was very positive. I mean, of course, the Democrats were they were angry that some of them were angry that Secretary Rubio talked over 1 minute because they were only going to get a minute. I heard some saying, it's just the usual politics. They're for war under Obama and Clinton. They're not for any kind of conflict under Trump. So it's just pure politics.
We started discussing a renewed appropriations bill for the munitions gap.
Well, apparently we don't need it right now, is what they were saying. So.
Congressman, this is a different topic, but Congresswoman Nancy Mace has introduced a privilege resolution on sexual harassment or that might come Thursday. Do you support that idea of disclosing?
If it doesn't pass, then I want to bring it up in the Doge committee. Yeah, I have no tolerance for any kind of abuse like that, ma'am. Did somebody else? I didn't want to get anybody. Everybody good?
Why do Democrats say that the president needs authority to bomb Iran? But they didn't
say it under Obama or Clinton. Obama bombed 8 different countries, I believe. It's just politics. That's all it is, dude. They don't like Trump. I can't decide whether they hate Trump more than they hate the country. One of the two. I can't decide. They kind of go back and forth. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
On the vote that
Were you in a fraternity, dude? You look like a fraternity guy. You got that look.
On the vote that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are forcing, how are you going to vote on that?
I don't support what they're moving forward with.
You're not going to force Congress to vote on war powers?
No.
I have a quick follow-up to we were talking about Americans who are trying to get home from the Middle East, the scrambled depart now for 14 countries. Did officials give a sense of how many Americans are in those countries?
Yeah, I think it's less than 2,000 that we know of. That's what we're told in the area. So, but I could have misheard that.
Do you think the administration needs to be very proactive in getting those people out?
Oh, absolutely. I think they are. They set up a special bureau at the right before they started bombing.
Are they going to do an evacuation with U.S. planes?
I mean, you just have to get that from somebody else. How about that?
Did not get Americans out before this started. They signaled to Israel.
It would have signaled to the other side.
They signaled to Israel on Friday. They authorized a departure for Israel to get Americans out of
Ma'am, if you're in the Middle East or if you're in Mexico, I think you need to reevaluate. You've been watching too many dadgum movies because that is a volatile area. I wouldn't allow my daughter to cross the border. And I dig your Converse high tops, Chuck Taylors. I used to wear those all we could afford. Now it's a fashion statement, so digging that. Anybody else? We good?
I have one last one. Hi, Congressman.
Hey, girl, what's happening? Come on up. Oh, be careful. Those fancy shoes. I'm well. Except for all these reporters hassling me.
I know, right? Come on, guys.
That's all right.
I'm just curious, have intelligence officials briefed Congress at all on the possibility of Iranian sleeper cells here in America? Should U.S. citizens be concerned about retaliation within the U.S.?
I haven't personally, but I've been told by some. So, yeah, I mean, we had millions of people come over the border during the Biden administration that we don't know where they are. And yeah, I'm worried about that, and I have been worried about that.
I actually have one more for you.
Oh my gosh.
Especially Ratcliffe talk about the potential of arming Kurdish forces to help with an uprising in Iran. Was there
That
any,
was not discussed.
That was not in the briefing? Okay.
Everybody good? Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.
And I'll always get to all your questions. I'm not one of these knuckleheads like, oh, no, man, I'm out of here. I got a pizza in the microwave, but it's going to get cold.
What a character. You don't happen to have a charger, do you?
I do. You want to borrow it?
Yeah.
Just make sure you
I'll be
get it back to me. So I'm a long way from home. You want to use this?
Let me see if I can get one more question about the policy. Sorry.
Okay, you need this?
Yes, your flags. And I think I'm just going to cancel.
Okay.
I kind of like this.
Okay.
You sound like yes.
I don't think they really get much done in these briefings. I think there's a lot of mystique, but I don't think it's very productive.
It's funny when you say that.
Yeah.
It's just cool. I feel like the members are all kind of like trickling out like this. The briefing's over. It's just in the queue. Like a bunch of people want to ask questions and get a point across. Or do something like that. Be able to write a press release.
Or they're rehearsing it back there. I don't know, or just like what they're going to say. Yeah.
No, I didn't see it.
You seem to still be recording.
No, I'm on airplane. It's just let's see. In the transcript, I couldn't really see my questions.
Oh yeah, no, they came in the science got them as still trying to figure out what that is. Lindsey Graham? What did he say?
He said to Chris, you know, he said, if all it takes is for us to be nice, I will be nice. He basically said, I was
Interesting.
so I'm going to write a quick story.
It's funny how that's pretty much been forgotten. The Department of Homeland Security, which has all these things packed into it, just funds it, and nobody's really talking about it. They just grab whatever. Yeah, I know. That's where I always park my car. I'm just lucky. The key is to it's like 7 to 9.
That's like
Like 9
go to.
Yeah, I just chance it on the street. Just I'm paper parking. If I get a ticket, yes, that's also. Very upsetting.
Those kinds of types, lobbyists and people on political campaigns.
Yes. So, okay, I just got a question about my privilege resolution this afternoon that I filed. I modified the language off of my resolution last week to ensure that members of Congress, if they are found or caught sexually harassing individuals, it wasn't just limited to the Hill and the offices here, that it actually includes political campaigns as well as lobbyists who might have been harassed by a member of Congress. So there'll be a vote. It was a privileged motion. There'll be a vote in the next 48 hours.
And you have heard from lobbyists and
I've heard from a number of people who are
that those
Eager to,
instances
yes,
have happened.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Congressman Burchett was just saying he's in favor of this. He said that before, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the idea that you have as well. But he said, I want to make sure it's not just sort of random accusations. I don't know how you legislate for that.
Well, the privilege resolution is broad. It's not just the investigations that have concluded, it's ones that are ongoing right now, and quite frankly, I don't give a damn. So this has been a hidden secret for a long time. Tomorrow I will subpoena in the Oversight Committee information on the slush fund. Can't get it through the privilege resolution, so we'll do it through the Oversight Committee to get information on how much money was paid out and for what reason out of that slush fund. Yeah. Any other questions?
Will that include names of people who are?
It will. My information redacts names of victims and witnesses, but not the names of the members of Congress.
Did Secretaries Hegseth and Rubio make the case for war?
Yes. This was in a top secret room, and so it was TSSCI, so I'm not going to go into the details. I do want to thank Secretary Ratcliffe, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, Joint Chiefs General Caine for their information today. They've been very direct, they've been very succinct. And the information that we provided. I sit on the House Armed Services Committee, and I won't go into anything that was stated in that the meeting we're having right now, but I will tell you, based on briefings I've had all over the world on the House Armed Services Committee, the nation of Iran was further along and closer to getting a nuclear weapon than at any other point in world history. This needed to happen. It needed to happen now. I also want to send a special thank you and gratitude to the Gulf states for their work in supporting the United States and, quite frankly, supporting Israel, because every state in the Gulf wants to see a prosperous Middle East, and everybody knows there is not prosperity or peace in the Middle East if Iran has a nuclear weapon.
Your no on the War Powers Resolution?
I'm going to see how it reads. I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at it quite yet. I will be a no for now, but if this thing goes beyond a few weeks, I'm going to have a lot more concerns. Right now, I'm trusting the information that I heard in that briefing, in that classified briefing now. I feel very confident, but if this goes on for longer than what we estimate it will go on for, then I think that's a different conversation about purpose, intent, costs, successes, etc. But now I believe it's too soon. President Trump, and let me be very clear, President Trump is following the War Powers Resolution of 1973. He has not wavered from that. I would like to remind the press and those watching this now, this briefing, that there are other presidents who've done more. President Obama bombed 8 countries, didn't go to Congress to ask about it. I hope that this will be short. I hope it doesn't go on more than a couple of weeks, and if it does beyond that, I think that's a different conversation that we need to have based on purpose and length of time.
What about if ground troops get involved? Would that also be a
If
reason
ground
to
troops get involved, I think that's a very different conversation. That's not where we are today. That's not what I heard in the briefing, and again, I won't go into details because it was classified. I feel very good and very confident about where we are, roughly just over 100 hours into the strikes and this conflict. I feel very good about the leadership team the president has assembled to take the lead here.
Yeah. You talked about the time frame. You don't expect it to go more than a few weeks, but what would you say to Republican voters who are really concerned about potentially another prolonged conflict? How would you?
I am concerned just as an American as well for the military families. I have family that are serving the military and including in our forces overseas, and so I would tell anyone that they have a duty to our nation. They've signed up and served. They are serving valiantly, and I believe our military understands the depth of the necessity and the timing of this, the imminence of this. It was very imminent, in my opinion, based on the information that I have, that this happened now and not later, because if we waited till later, Iran would have a nuclear weapon, and we cannot have that. There will not be peace in the world, peace in the Middle East, if Iran went nuclear. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And do you think your investigation from the Ethics Committee is without?
sexual assault resolution. It's retribution for deposition of repentance. Huh. How does that work? I don't know. Huh. She thinks going after the question is fair. The hot seat. Yeah. I think she is a little bit unwell. Hopefully the cameras aren't really. She is. Oh my God. Yeah. Gotta stand up. Yeah.
No, I actually don't. I really don't. Unfortunately not. Oh, we're doing it from the hill too. That's right.
Yeah.
Moving it all around.
Peter. Front, right here, right here. Are you 7 a.m. tomorrow? Are you 7 a.m. tomorrow? So we're gonna get GMA. Jay.
Here comes Molten.
Jeff Fitzgerald. I think he's the rest of the week. He's like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the next 3 days. Congresswoman Jayapal, do we have you speak at the full camera, please?
Okay.
Just wonder what your takeaways are from the briefing. Obviously, it's classified. I know you can't give many details, but what's your impression on what you were hearing in there?
We got no additional information on what the imminent threat was. There were a lot of references to the 47 years of Iran being a problem. That is not imminent. That is in the past. Imminent means immediate threat to the U.S. That was just not addressed at all. And there's nothing, frankly, there's nothing that we got that you don't have.
Was there any discussion of munitions and whether or not there's enough to fight a war beyond a few weeks?
No, that was not addressed. But it's unclear how long this is going to be going on. I mean, this is definitely not a couple of days. You know, they've been talking about 4 to 6 weeks publicly. But I have a hard time believing that that's all it's going to be. And I also think that there was very clearly, once again, nothing to the strategy of how we are thinking about this, other than, you know, some, frankly, totally inadequate responses on what the real threat was. Also, I will say that there's 90 million people in Iran, civilians, and there's no discussion about how to rebuild Iran, what the United States' role would be in rebuilding once this destruction occurs. And I think that's also very troubling. That was a question that Representative Ansari raised. And I think that's also very troubling. But I think, you know, overall, there is nothing that convinces me that there was any imminent threat, number one. Nothing that convinces me that this shouldn't have been brought to Congress if there was a real desire to go to war with Iran for some set of reasons. That should be debated. And one person saying that, in his opinion, this was the right thing to do is the tradition that we broke with of monarchs and kings making singular decisions to take their countries to war. That was what the founders debated and put into the Constitution to provide authority to Congress and Congress alone to make that decision. And we've already lost 6 people. It's been publicly stated, and it was stated in there again, that we will lose more. That's not just the way it is, as the president said. That is exactly the reason that Congress needs to be thinking about this, because the lives of our troops are very valuable to us, and we need to make sure we are assessing when we send our troops into war and taking that with the utmost seriousness that a congressional debate about this would allow for, but not a singular person deciding that it's time to go to war. Thanks, everybody.
Based on the questions that were asked in there, do you feel there are any Republicans who have real reservations about this?
It's hard to tell. There weren't very many Republicans that asked questions. It was mostly Democrats that were in line. You know, I think there were certainly concerns from Republicans about American citizens who are in the region, and the State Department is arranging to try and get those folks out. But we do have people in the region who are stuck, and not until this morning was it announced that we would be arranging flights for those folks, but there are challenges of getting airspace and other things that restrict the ability for people who are there to get out. So I think there were some concerns around that. There was a question about AUMFs, but it wasn't clear to me what the exact question was. So, but not very many Republicans asked questions, and it was only an hour briefing. I mean, it's still going on, but I didn't feel like I was going to get anything that was of importance, so I'm leaving. But there were lots more Democrats in line to ask questions.
Congresswoman, today Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that the homeland is less safe because DHS is still shut down, and now we've got this maybe war with Iran. Do you agree with that assessment? Does it add urgency to reopen DHS?
No. Kristi Noem has done such a terrible job of managing DHS and ICE and CBP, and the reality is we have a crisis right here at home on our streets with U.S. citizens being murdered, with people being detained without due process. Courts are ruling against DHS, and Kristi Noem has actually taken agents who should be working on critical security threats and assigned them to immigration. So there is a lot that is a problem. She's coming before us tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have a chance to ask her some of those questions tomorrow.
Are you not worried that more shooters like the Austin shooter will emerge?
I'm concerned about going forward.
how limited is this? How long will it take? What are the implications for years to come? You went in, you freed Iran. Because Iran was all last year.
Congresswoman, do you think Israel played a role in dragging us to this war?
Just think about the War Powers Act. When our country is hit, 9/11, the president has any and all authority to use any and all force to go forward. We passed an authorization of use of military force that limited the president's power to geography. It's three things. You know what it is. It's the method, it's the geography, and the timing. And that's what people voted for at the time. Even those greatly devoted to the War Powers Act voted for that. Now, we don't know what the timing, the method, boots on the ground. Is that part of this? And if that is, we know that that is a declaration of war that should not happen. Now, it's so disappointed to hear that the Republicans don't think Congress should assert itself. This isn't a vote as to whether we go in or not. That's a different vote. So this is a vote as to whether Congress has the authority, which the Constitution of the United States gives it, to declare war. And anything else of saying, oh, well, we did this and that was limited military force. That's a completely different thing, based on the United Nations resolution just days before to stop what they were doing there. Limited military force. We might have boots on the ground. We don't know how long it's going to last. And whether it's Israel was going in, so we had to go in, or we had to go in because Israel was going in. The American people deserve better than that, more certainty than that, when we're putting our young men and women at risk to fight a war.
Based on what you heard, Madam Speaker, based on what you heard, Madam Speaker, do you believe the administration has an exit strategy?
Congressman Harassment, you have a minute?
Unfortunately, I got a meeting, but I'll get to that.
And the fact is, again, when you look at the Iraq war and you see the destabilization of
This only lasts for a couple of weeks, as several administration officials have said. Would that also be considered a limited number?
Let's see how long it lasts. Yeah. You said it's only last a couple of weeks. I haven't heard anything. So,
we've just heard a few Republicans.
Yeah. Straps are falling apart. Yeah, it's tough. Is there heat over there? Oh, yeah, that's great. Do you find yourself walking around like this with no camera? You guys look pretty bored.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. I'm the ranking member of the Middle East Subcommittee. I had a chance to address the War Powers Act, also called the War Powers Resolution. Every president since the 1970s has claimed that that War Powers Act was not constitutionally binding. But this is the first president that has to deal with the War Powers Act enforcement provisions that we've been adding since I authored them since 2012. Now, I don't know if this action is going to take more than 60 days. If it doesn't, then the president does not need an affirmative action by Congress. Now, the president is subject to a resolution by Congress requiring withdrawal, but we would expect that even if that passes the House, it would be, and the Senate, it would still be vetoed. So as far as the president needing affirmative action by Congress, that comes in at the 60th day. Other presidents have said they don't need it, but other presidents have not dealt with the provision in the Defense Appropriations Bill designed to enforce the War Powers Act. That provision says that no money shall be spent in contravention of the War Powers Act. So you have one area of the Constitution that is thought to be vague. That is war powers. The president is commander-in-chief. Congress has the right to declare war. But there's one part of the Constitution that is absolutely clear, and that is the president can only spend money that is appropriated by Congress and only for the purposes appropriated by Congress. So I brought to the attention of the entire panel there that if they were to violate this provision of the Defense Appropriations Bill, they could face criminal or civil personal liability. We hope very much that this action takes less than 60 days, in which case this provision would not be triggered.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad.
Hi. It is very clear this is a war of choice by President Trump. There was no imminent threat against the American people, against American facilities or persons. This is a war that is going to be borne on the backs of working class Americans who have suffered, financed, fought over 20 years of war. Enough is enough. It is time for Congress to get involved, retake its constitutional authority, to return the American people back into the driver's seat on matters of war and peace. That is what this is about. It's also very clear this administration has no plan for the day after. They've stumbled into this. They are trying to destroy the Iranian regime, and they have no plan for what comes next. History shows very clearly this does not end well.
What's being done about the Americans that are still stuck over there?
They are struggling to identify the Americans who are there. They asked for the assistance of members of Congress, assistance that we will provide, putting out guidance to our constituents about what needs to happen to evacuate as this conflict continues to spread throughout the region, because make no mistake, this is spreading and this is magnifying. It's getting worse, not better, so we're going to do everything possible to put out information out to U.S. citizens in the region as to how they can connect with the State Department and get evacuated to safety.
You said you didn't hear anything about an imminent threat. Did they give you any sense about that? Did they try and make the case that Israel was already going to go in without us? Or?
Well, I'm not going to go into the details in a classified briefing, but what I can tell you is historically, leading up to today, as a member of the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee, I have seen no evidence that there is an imminent threat against U.S. persons or facilities that would require a unilateral action by President Trump without consultation of Congress to initiate a conflict.
Why are Democrats do you expect it to look similar to the Iraq War in Afghanistan? Do you see any similarities or differences that you expect?
Well, I'm haunted by the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and every war is different. Iraq was different from Afghanistan. This is different from Iraq or Afghanistan. But the common strand to all of these is it's going to cost the American people a lot of money, and it's working class people that are going to have to do the fighting and dying and taking the burden of the decisions made by elites without any planning.
Why are Democrats putting a war power resolution under Trump, but they didn't do it under Obama when he bombed 8 countries?
Well, they should have, actually. Right? What was wrong then is also wrong now. I came here to Congress to do my job and to do my duty, and to put the American people back in place in the driver's seat, to end endless conflicts, and that is what I'm going to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman.
We just heard from Secretary Hegseth, Secretary of State Rubio, the rest of President Trump's leadership team in this operation to talk about why it's so important that we stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That's been the objective from day one. They talked about some of the threats. Obviously, I can't go into the things that were discussed in a classified setting, but they've been very clear what the mission is. And of course, we know they complied with the War Powers Act, which some previous administrations didn't even do, but President Trump has done that, and he's operating under his legal authority to keep America safe from the threat of a nuclear Iran. And let's not forget that this is a regime that has killed hundreds of Americans over years, over decades. This has been going on for a long time. Iran's declared war against us decades ago, whether or not we were going to deal with this threat, something a lot of American presidents talked about. President Trump actually took decisive action to keep America safe from a very tyrannical regime that not only killed their own people, but has killed Americans over decades and would continue to do so, and had made it clear their intent was to get a nuclear weapon, and they chant death to America. And this president recognized that threat and did something about it, and we appreciate that he's done that as we pray for our troops who are carrying out this important mission. Take a couple of questions.
Your Democratic counterparts have said that they did not hear enough of a plan, that there's not necessarily a plan for the day after, that there's not a deep plan for protecting Americans that need to get out. What do you say to that in response?
Well, maybe they don't want to hear what the plan is because they just don't like this president. They seem to root against anything he does. But everybody's acknowledged the threat that Iran has posed to the world and specifically to the United States for decades. People in both parties have done that for a long, long time. Some people have ignored the threat, but the threat was getting worse. Their ability to enrich uranium, to develop a nuclear weapon, had been growing, and everybody knows that. And this president finally did something about it.
Over the summer, the White House said that they had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Was that bad intelligence? Were they misinformed?
We know Iran not only had multiple facilities where they were developing nuclear weapons, but as soon as that operation was over, it was called Operation Midnight Hammer, I believe, Iran went right back to work trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And, by the way, not only drones, but ballistic missiles to carry out nuclear weapons. And if you look at some of the negotiations that were going on prior to this operation being carried out, the president and his diplomatic team, led by Secretary of State Rubio, had been trying to reach a diplomatic solution for months. And Iran had taken every ability to negotiate, for example, enriching uranium off the table, the delivering of ballistic missiles off the table. They made it clear they had absolutely no intention of stopping the push, the mad rush to get a nuclear weapon. So even though that operation was successful, they went right back to work trying to develop a nuclear weapon and enriching uranium, and they had multiple locations where they were doing that.
Was there a request for a supplemental, and could the House pass one?
There was early talk of a supplemental, but we're not at a stage where any of those numbers could be discussed. Look, you're going to see a robust debate about this over the next weeks and months, but the American people are looking at this too, and they're wondering, is the world and America specifically safer with this Iranian regime gone? And when you look at their abilities that they were moving and advancing on to get a nuclear weapon, what would they have done with that when they are chanting death to America? Take them at their word, because they have killed hundreds of American troops over the last few decades, and they were continuing to do that. This isn't some new threat. It's been an ongoing threat, but the threat was getting more imminent.
Netanyahu, for over 30 years now, has been saying they are imminently going to get a nuclear weapon. A decade ago, he was saying they're weeks or months away. Anthony Blinken, Biden's Secretary of State, said they are weeks away. So for decades, they've been apparently weeks away. So how do you expect Americans to believe now that this was actually the time when they were about to get it and we struck at the perfect moment?
I don't speak for other countries, but if you listen to what President Trump has talked about, our intelligence has shown that Iran had become very close to being able to deliver nuclear capabilities. And after Midnight Hammer, they still were pursuing nuclear ambitions to go and kill them and do harm to Americans. And they were making it clear. Just listen to what Iran was saying. They were telling you what they wanted to do. And again, these are the same people that were chanting death to America, because that is what they wanted to do with nuclear weapons. And that's why President Trump has made it clear you cannot have a world where Iran has a nuclear weapon, because yes, they're a threat to a lot of countries, especially in the Middle East region, but they're a direct threat to America, and they've killed Americans for decades, and they had no intention to stop. Even with diplomatic means, they had no intention of rolling back those plans. So President Trump is carrying out a very important mission that's making America safer, and we're praying for the safety and true effectiveness of this mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leader.
I just wanted to say briefly that we had a full house tonight. I believe this is the, I think the third or fourth briefing that I've been to. It was Gang of 8, then we did Gang of 20. and now the full House was there. Many people attended. There were good questions. There was good exchange of information, and I was grateful for the briefers of giving yet another valuable amount of time to come and talk with the House. They made clear, and they've been very consistent from the beginning, that the objective, the mission here, the rationale for it is very clear and very simple. You've heard it articulated over and over and over from the President of the United States, from the Secretary of State, from the Secretary of War, myself, and many others who have said this over and over. I'm not sure why there are lingering questions about this. This is really a very simple matter. It's about the building of ballistic missiles. That's what Iran was engaged in. And they were doing it at a speed and at a scale that was exceeding the ability of our regional allies to respond appropriately. This created an imminent and serious threat. It also gave them cover to continue with their nuclear ambitions. As you know, we tried very hard to negotiate with them about that nuclear enrichment of uranium. We tried to talk with them about their continuing to fund their proxies, all the terrorist organizations that have wreaked havoc and killed Americans and American citizens. And the buildup of their missiles was so important and so serious that the President of the United States, this President, thought that it was a great enough threat that we needed to act. We had a narrow and unique opportunity, a window of opportunity to act, and if that window had passed, it would have been much more difficult for us to achieve the mission. The mission is very simple. It's twofold. We take out their ability to launch ballistic missiles and to produce ballistic missiles, and we downgrade their Navy. That's it. That's what we're doing. It's short in scope. It does not violate the law in any way. It was explained here very well. I'm a constitutional law attorney, used to litigate these questions. We had counsel from the DOJ here tonight who said very well, very clearly, fell just short of citing the specific case law, but explained that this has been the tradition for decades. The President is well within his constitutional authority to do what he has done, and it is entirely consistent with a history of former presidents for at least 4 decades. There's no question about this. The Democrats never had any question about it when Democrat presidents were using this authority. When you look at the analysis of the War Powers Act and the law that applies and the powers that are given to the Commander-in-Chief under Article 2 of the Constitution, President Trump has done exactly what he should do. He is squarely within the law. He used his discretion and his authority and the intelligence that he had, exquisite as it was, as is demonstrated by its effectiveness, and he did what he should have done as a Commander-in-Chief. The idea that a few colleagues here would try to move a War Powers motion and resolution to the floor right now is dangerous. Imagine a scenario where Congress would vote to tell the Commander-in-Chief that he was no longer allowed to complete this mission. That would be a very dangerous thing. You see that Iran is firing almost seemingly indiscriminately at targets. They're trying to intimidate America. They're trying to test our resolve. And the idea that there's some members of this legislative body that would play along with that plays right into the hands of the enemy. And I think it's shameful. I do believe we have the votes to defeat it. I certainly hope we do, because we have lots of troops, service members, in harm's way right now, and the balance of this thing is hanging there. It's been very effective thus far. It needs to be completed. We don't need Congress getting in the way of that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Is there any indication of plans? Representative Scalise said he heard one. Democrats say they're not hearing one. What happens when the war ends? What does that look like, and then what does the day after look like?
Look, no one can yet determine with any degree of certainty how this will turn out. We have taken out what appears to be top few layers of leaders and potential leaders who would take over there. It is time for the people of Iran to step up and seize this moment of opportunity for them, the one that they have long awaited, to have freedom there. We're encouraging that. We're hopeful for that. I think our NATO allies and our other allies around the world are watching with great anticipation and hope. I suspect that the entire world will reach out a hand of encouragement and assistance as is needed to help them. We have no ability to get into the nation-building business. We don't do that. We're not the world's policemen. America has enough trouble of our own. But I think this is a great development for the people there to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and seize this moment of opportunity. We're certainly hopeful and prayerful that they will, and that no other innocent people are killed. Iran, by some estimates, murdered tens of thousands of their own citizens just within the last several weeks. Those people are now deceased. They do not have the ability to do that. There's still dangerous folks there. but there's more good people. There's more people who desire to have freedom and liberty, and there are terrorists and tyrants in the world. I'm grateful for that. This is their moment to step up, and I hope they will. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, based on what you were
Nonetheless, this is odd.
Anyone interested in hearing from the PhD physicist here?
Why not?
Okay.
What are you most
I'm
concerned?
Congressman Bill Foster. I'm the PhD physicist in Congress.
As the PhD physicist, what are you most concerned
Well,
about?
the same thing I was concerned about after the strikes of last summer. That the only question here, if you're worried about Iranians' ability to put together a nuclear weapon on a short time scale, is where is their stockpile of 60% enriched uranium. We have heard that they had never had a plan, not last summer and not now, to destroy that, to seize it, or to put it under international inspection. And until that happens, Iran will be very, very close to making, as many, in a non-classified situation, many observers have pointed out, Iran can use that material to make a handful of Hiroshima-style nuclear devices. Not the sort you can put on a missile, but the sort you can deliver by a number of other ways and are very hard to stop. So I was very disappointed that we did not see a plan to put that material under control or destroy it.
Thank you.
I'll start off by just saying this. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. There's no plans. What happens afterwards? There's no plans. What was planned to get Americans out of the way that are still stuck there? There's no plan. We have not learned the lessons of the past. What we see continuing here is, number one, we had 1 hour for members of Congress to ask questions when all they have ever had was 2 meetings with the Gang of 8 and 1 meeting with the Gang of 12 or 18 or whatever it was. That's it. 1 hour that they wanted to cut short and tell members to ask a question in 1 minute. No hearings. In the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've asked the chairman of the committee over and over again, can you bring administration officials in? None. No citing, and no one allowed to talk to Stephen Witkoff or Jared Kushner to ask them about the negotiations that were supposed to be taking place. In fact, it seems as though this was pre-planned all along, because when you hear Prime Minister Netanyahu says this has been planned months ago. And then when you hear time after time, meeting after meeting, it switches on why the war started when it started. Because there was clearly no imminent threat to the United States of America. So here we are again, without answers. Here we are again, without complete transparency. Here we are again, trying to go around Congress, which is why tomorrow's vote on War Powers resolution is tremendously important, because we don't have a king, and we're not a parliament. We're the Congress that stated that only the Congress can declare war. And everyone in the room and other places says this is a war. You know, initially one point they were saying this was not a war, so you can get around the war powers. Well, the president says it's a war. The secretaries are saying it's a war. Everyone is saying it is a war. They called what took place on the 12-day war. Come to Congress, answer our questions, and put the case to the American people. Convince and let the American people know what took place and why. I've been here a long time. I was here in 2003. At least George W. Bush Colin Powell went before the committee. He went before the UN. George Bush went before all of the people of the United States over and over and over again, trying to convince them that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. At that time, I looked, because I had access, truth of the matter is there was times I could just call somebody in the administration. They didn't call me down to the White House. They came to my office to try to convince me on what it was. I did not see a nexus. They did the same thing with Afghanistan. And this time they convinced me that there was a connection to 9/11. This administration, the Trump administration, is doing everything that they can not to tell the American people the real reason why it was absolutely necessary to go to war when they went to war.
What do you think the real reason is, Congressman? What do you think the real reason is why now?
Well, my thing is, as far as diplomacy is concerned, it never was really on the table. I think that what Prime Minister Netanyahu has said, this was planned months ago. That's what he said. So I think that President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu decided a month ago or more that this is what they were going to do. Now, without telling anyone or having the reasons to be able to explain, but I think that, I know on President Trump's side, he thinks that he can do whatever he wants to do and take us into war after war. I mean, I think there's 6 or 7 times already where he's utilized the military. He acts like it's his toy, and then he talks about it. You know, he's at a ceremony honoring people, and he starts talking about curtains and him doing the, fixing the, I think it's gaudy what he's doing, the White House. Our young men and women, lives are on the line. The hardest vote for me since I've been in Washington, D.C., is to vote to decide whether or not our men and women should go into battle, not joke about it and talk about curtains. It's serious, but do you see how he plays with it and seemingly don't take it serious about the seriousness and the lives of the men and women in our military who, I might add, they're great. They do their job. They're focused on this country, and they will do whatever the commander-in-chief tells them to do. So I admire them. They deserve to know why we're in this war at this time. They deserve to know.
Did you hear any indication in the briefing from the secretaries whether they're willing or ready to put boots on the ground in Iran?
I'm not going to talk about anything specifically in that regards. Since we were in the class, I'm giving you what my, not what was said in there, but I'm telling you what I got out of it and what I feel as a result of not only what took place in there today, but what has taken place from the time that we've been in this war. Because I hear different rationales. It's regime change one day. It's because Israel was going to strike and then they were going to retaliate against us another day. It's because the president decided it just was time to go another day. It's because there was an imminent threat another day. Each day, sometimes twice a day, the rationale for doing this changes. That tells me it is not serious, and they're not talking straight to the American people on something that is life and death. And what the results are going to be. We had this battle, my Republican colleagues, all for the previous last 2 years on Afghanistan. That we've been there for 20 years, and they talked about the death of individuals, of our soldiers, et cetera, and wanted to make sure that we went in depth and tried to blame everything on President Biden at the time. In fact, that's all he does now, is say Biden, Biden, Biden. This is his presidency. This is his war that he's created. And he's got to stand up, and he's going to be held accountable for it.
I'm going to add just a few comments. I'm Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury of the Oversight Committee, and I just want to directly respond to what the Speaker just said to the press, which is that Congress should stay out of it. My response is, Mr. Speaker, have you read the United States Constitution? Because the U.S. Constitution is clear that the power to declare war squarely sits with Congress. And it is very clear that this administration has not put forward a viable argument for why the U.S. should be declaring war on Iran and why it has deployed military resources without congressional authorization. So let me amplify a few things that Ranking Member Meeks has put forward. First of all, has this administration provided a viable legal theory of why we should be going to war with Iran? No. Has this administration put forward a credible piece of evidence as to why there was an imminent threat that meets a legal threshold for attacking Iran? No. Can they explain what their post-conflict plan is for rebuilding and stabilizing the region? No. Can they explain whether and how the breakdown in diplomatic efforts occurred? No. Can they explain why they hit a school full of school children and murdered over 100 school children? No. And can they explain how they plan to stop the loss of U.S. service members? No. In fact, as has already been stated publicly, they expect more deaths of American service members. So the American people need to be demanding that Congress pass this war powers resolution. This is Congress's square responsibility, and we are not going to allow this administration to continue to act illegally, unconstitutionally, and without the designated authority to do what it is doing. So thank you very much.
You can, I'm going to send an email. Just keep it up for 2 more minutes and send an email. It's coming back.
I said, what's going on with your girl?
Call congressmen by their first names. Sorry.
I know Greg since he was in the damn. Listen, my ex-girlfriend. No, that's great. That's great. So, my ex-girlfriend's grandfather got it in December. And that's how far back, yes, that's how far back we go. Yes, I'm going. Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you, Roy. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I wanted to send a note on the phone. Type it. Just keep bars up for a second.
Thanks.
Just give me 30 seconds.
What I do.
Bye, Roy.
Oh, shit.
tonight. Can I trouble you all to take your mics
I was
so I
telling
can?
him that, so like, he's like,
I'll grab my. Thank you. Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind returning the chairs to where you got them, appreciate it. Tossing your bottles.
you're my notes out. You can do your jam, whatever you want to do.
Alrighty.
Thanks for being a good neighbor.
Okay, we're sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Is this your jacket?
Appreciate you guys.
I'm just gonna move it so I can start.